Hello guys, Crispy here and welcome back to another monitor review. In this one, my friends, we're gonna be taking a look at yet another affordable monitor. This time it's 1440p and it's the Koorui 27E6QC. This is a 27-inch 1440p 144Hz VA monitor with FreeSync premium technology, and it's also G-Sync compatible. And it usually costs around $175 on Amazon or $199 in their website. Once again, Koorui impresses with the spec sheet, for the price at least, but let's see if it's actually any good. Shall we? First things first, in the box, just like with their 24-inch monitor that I reviewed last week, you'll find the stand, an instructions manual, the AC power adapter, and a DisplayPort cable. No HDMI cable here, but that's alright, DisplayPort is better anyways. I actually use HDMI on my main monitor, but it's 2.1. This one right here only supports 2.0 or 1.4. Let's talk about the colors now. I used this Calibrite tool to measure them with DisplayCal 3, and with out-of-the-box settings it wasn't too accurate, requiring some adjustments within the color settings of the monitor. These are the settings that I used on my unit to make that text go green, and then once it was green, I proceeded to run the test. And after 22 minutes of letting it doing its thing, we got the results in. We got 99.8% of the sRGB color space and 88% almost of the DCI-P3 color space. So that's just a little bit above the advertised specs. That's great. One thing that I noticed though out of the box was that the contrast levels were a bit too low because of the gamma values, so I needed to adjust that using the display color calibration within Windows, but once I did that, the contrast levels were really nice. And that's to be expected because this is a VA panel, so compared to IPS it has much better contrast levels. I can't really measure them because my tool doesn't report any contrast levels for some reason. Like, it does have the functionality, it just shows that it can't do that. Maybe it's defective, I don't know. But I can definitely tell you that this doesn't disappoint here either. The contrast levels are great and the blacks were very deep when I was playing games like Cyberpunk 2077, for example. It looked really nice. In terms of brightness, it also did pretty well for a monitor in this price range. It outperformed the advertised spec of 250 nits with 296 nits of brightness. That's almost 300. It's pretty damn good in this regard. Again, for the price, it doesn't support any HDR. Of course, it's not expected at this price, I think. Now, one of the most important things in a gaming monitor is the pixel response time. For that, I used an LDAT sensor sent by Nvidia, and with out-of-the-box settings, it recorded 11.6 milliseconds of gray-to-gray response time. That's a bit far away from the 7 milliseconds needed for 144 Hz without any ghosting or black smearing, so unfortunately, I saw that in CSGO, especially in the tunnel area, in the Dust 2. Yeah, it is what it is. It's normal for a VA panel, though. IPS monitors are much better in this regard. Good thing is, though, enabling Overdrive in this monitor fixed things a little bit. It was a much better experience now with 8.3 milliseconds of response time. That's much closer to the 7 milliseconds needed for perfect transitions at 144 Hz. And, well, I still saw some ghosting and black smearing using this setting, but it was much better. In terms of overshoot using Overdrive, it only got a value of 1.2%, so that's pretty much negligible. You're not going to see any overshoot here. So I think the best way to experience this monitor is with Overdrive enabled. All in all, it wasn't really a deal breaker to me. I could still play the games absolutely fine, and again, I've only seen major ghosting and black smearing playing CSGO in the tunnel area. So it's probably not great for competitive shooters because it can get quite distracting, but for example in Cyberpunk 2077, where things are much more contrasty, I didn't really see much black smearing at all, so I don't know. And I want to do a little bit of a comparison here, just talking to you guys. I don't have like exact values because I only started reviewing monitors recently, but I want to compare it to some VA panels that I had in the past. I had a Dell S3220 DGF monitor, and that was a bit better than this. I couldn't really see much ghosting or black smearing in that monitor, but that's a 400 euro monitor, you know. Another cheap VA monitor that I had was the Samsung Odyssey G5, and I saw a ton of black smearing in that one and ghosting, so that was really terrible. I don't recommend that panel to anybody, and this was much better than that. On to Backlight Bleed. It's exaggerated right here because of the camera settings, but it was much better than I expected, given that this is a curved panel, and usually you see a lot more bleeding with curved panels like this one. For reference, what my eyes actually saw was more about this, and it was definitely not noticeable whatsoever while playing games and just browsing the web and stuff like that. Moving on to build quality, and this is where they cut the most corners to achieve this low price point with a pretty decent panel. So we got an old plastic build, it doesn't creak whatsoever, so that's great, and it wobbles when you touch it, but it stays in place while flicking the mouse around in games, for example. Also, if you're wondering, if you do this to your table, it's not too bad. The monitor stand only allows for tilt adjustments, no swivel, no height adjustments here unfortunately. You can always use like a little box below the monitor if you wanted to adjust the height of it, so that's fine, you know, it's a budget monitor anyway, so I didn't expect a really good stand. But if you do want a really good stand, it has VESA mounting holes on the back, and you can buy a VESA compatible stand for your monitor. Still on the build quality topic, or quality control you could say, they also sent me 2 of these monitors because the first one had like 4 dead pixels, and it was a little line. It was a pretty weird defect, but they instantly swapped that out, and they will do that if it happens to you as well, because their RMA process is good. At least that's what they told me, so no worries here. They also give you a 3-year warranty if you purchase the monitor from their website. Let's talk about the design now. It definitely has a gamery look with that 1800R curved display, aggressive looking stand, and the red font on the font. No, the red font on the front. I liked the logo more on the 24-inch monitor that they sent me, the 1080p one. It was a lot more stealthy because it was black. You couldn't even notice it very much. And this one, yeah, it's a little bit in your face. The bezels are also very thin, as you can clearly see, so I really like that. And on the back, it has less red than the 24-inch monitor that I tested. It only has a Koorui logo, but it doesn't really matter anyways. You're not gonna see the back of your display very often. And under that VESA mount we find all of the ports. Here we have a DisplayPort port, a couple of HDMI ports, one is 1.4 and another one is 2.0 as I told you previously. We also have the AC power connector and a headphone jack, which I wouldn't use at all because it sounds really bad. Lastly, before we move on to the gaming experience, let's take a look at the on-screen display. You can find almost everything here: the overdrive settings, color settings, FreeSync, brightness, contrast, cheat, crosshairs, and so on. But there is one thing missing, which is probably a common thing between the Koorui monitors, because the other one that I reviewed also didn't have it. It's the sharpness slider. If you care about that, well, this doesn't have it. It is really sharp out of the box though, so they probably calibrated it in that way, but yeah, you can't really adjust that. Finally, the gaming experience. Let's start with the esports. This is where I saw the most black smearing in CSGO, inside of the tunnel particularly, once again, and it was a decent experience overall. I could still play the game absolutely fine. I just think it's not for those of you who really want to be competitive in a game like this, and for those of you who care about black smearing and ghosting, of course. If you are very sensitive to that, I would levitate towards an IPS panel at 1440p, you know, for example the 24-inch 1080p monitor from Koorui didn't display any ghosting or black smearing whatsoever because it's an IPS panel. Now, is it a deal breaker for most people playing CSGO or Valorant, for example? Not really. It's still 144Hz, it still feels very smooth, and it's only in a few transitions where you're gonna notice some black smearing. So I could still handle this absolutely fine, and I could still have a blast playing some CSGO on it. I didn't play Valorant this time around, by the way, because I suck at it. Moving on to Forza Horizon 5, the colors really popped in this one. It was a lovely experience. No ghosting or black smearing, maybe a little bit inside of tunnels again, but it was negligible. I didn't really notice that. I was more focused in the beautiful colors and the beautiful detail of 1440p resolution in this game. It really is a good bump over the 1080p resolution, and it's just gorgeous to look at this game at 1440p basically. Next is Call of Duty Warzone. This time I chose this instead of Battlefield. I shouldn't have, because I totally suck in Warzone 2, and the server was lagging as well. I don't know what they're doing with this game, honestly, but it was absolutely fine. I chose this one because it is a little bit more muted than Battlefield in terms of colors, and I thought maybe since it has a lot of grays, we'd see some black smearing and some more ghosting in this one, but that wasn't really the case. And by the way, this is playing with the Overdrive settings enabled. Moving on to another single-player title, this is the beautiful, gorgeous Red Dead Redemption 2, and this one, the greens, man, the greens really popped. I was really happy with the experience in Red Dead Redemption 2, again, since it's a single-player, slower-paced title, and it has a lot of color. Ghosting wasn't noticeable, or motion blur. It was really, really nice, smooth, and detailed, and we got to see Jack once again, who gave us a hug. That's beautiful. Friendship, my friends. This is true friendship right here. Next is Cyberpunk 2077. As I told you previously, it looks really, really good with these contrast levels of this monitor. Very detailed as well at the 1440p resolution. Honestly, I think 1440p at 27 inches is the sweet spot for PC gaming. It's not too big, it's not too small, it looks pin sharp. This time I used it right. Because of that 107 ppi. And by the way, I was using DLSS set to quality as well as frame generation enabled here in Cyberpunk with the ultra settings at 1440p, and it was still super sharp and detailed. I thought it would look a lot smoother and soft, you know, but no. Lastly, I just wanted to take a look at Assassin's Creed Unity. It's not really a popular title, but I tested it recently here in the channel, and it looks amazing. This is a 9-year-old title that we're looking at right here, and look at those visuals. It is really, really beautiful, the lighting and everything. It also has some very decent contrast, some bluish hues as well, which looked amazing on this monitor because of the colors. Yeah, no ghosting that I noticed. I mean, maybe there is a little bit of ghosting even in these other titles that aren't competitive shooters, but honestly, I was just so immersed in the game itself that I didn't notice any of it, and everything looked great to me. And that's been it, my friends. I think we've covered everything here in this video. The monitor is actually worth the asking price, even though it's a very cheap 1440p high refresh rate panel with FreeSync and so on. They are still using a quality panel right here. Again, the ghosting issue is there. That's normal for VAs. If you care about that, just go buy an IPS, don't buy VAs, okay? I think the only VA that doesn't have an issue is like the Samsung Odyssey G7. That's a really, really fast VA. This one is just average, but being average at below average price is actually pretty good, right? I mean, I myself wouldn't have a problem using this as my main gaming monitor, so I think 90% of you out there won't have an issue either. Thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one very soon. As always, love you all. Bye-bye.